Hello everyone, it's so good to be here again. So I'm here to talk about a Ubisoft game of all things. It's not like I'm the biggest hater on Ubisoft games. I mean, shit, I did work at Ubisoft for several years at one point in time. One project that I love to death. Other projects, Ubisoft be Ubisoft. I've seen how the sausage was made, and Lord knows that they've had a rough streak for a while now. Their latest being Skull and Bones, which came out, as everyone thought it would, I guess. But lo and behold, the first notable game of 2024 is, of course, a Ubisoft game, and it is Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown. And it's actually kind of fire. And I'll be honest with you guys, the moment I saw it announced, I thought like, oh, there's something really interesting going on here. It's among those few Ubisoft titles like the Mario and Rabbids games, for example, that really stand out from the usual wheelbarrow of what Ubisoft games are typically known for. And of course, Ubisoft Montpellier, who are known for Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends, come out with yet another banger. And the game basically turned out to be just as great as I hoped it would be. First of all, the art style was beautiful. I really love the stylized look of environments. There are quite a lot of beautiful vistas. Color palette is varied and potent. And all the characters are quite interestingly drawn. And I love all the character portraits that you meet throughout the game's adventure. And it is worth noting too that I played this on the Switch. I debated quite a while to see which version of the game I would get, whether it be on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, but I opted for the Switch. And honestly, it really is a bit of a miraculous port. Check out the Digital Foundry video on YouTube because they really convinced me that, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go for the Switch version. And I did have a chance to compare the PlayStation 5 and Switch version at one point in time. Yes, there are minor differences, but for the most part, it is almost identical. So that was awesome. It looks beautiful. It runs great on the Switch. I had a blast. There are only a very few instances of slowdowns, specifically in cutscenes, but you get over that really quickly. Otherwise, the action, the parkour, navigation, and all that is pretty much butter smooth. And frankly, I am impressed with the action here. This isn't quite a From Software Dark Souls level of challenge, but it is a decently challenging, and if nothing else, an engaging action RPG experience. All the Castlevania tropes that we all know and love are here, so it doesn't really reinvent the wheel, not that it really needs to. There is quite a lot that can be said about these combat abilities that you gain in the game, but I think the more interesting ones are these time-themed abilities that I won't spoil, that are used more for puzzle, navigation, and in some instances, combat. And I absolutely love the presentation of them. Though if I do have one point of criticism for them, I do find that they suffer the kind of same issue we had in past Zelda games, where the gadget you would get in that specific dungeon, you would use it quite interestingly in that instance, but then as the game will progress, you wouldn't really use it all that often, and there are quite a few abilities in Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown that suffer from that, though they more than make up for in personality, presentation, and narrative design, as I mentioned before. But by far my favorite part of the game was the parkour mechanics. You got some smooth moves over here. The 3Cs are tight, fluid, and super fun to use, and there's some pretty cool challenges that are created in this game. Honestly, the level design shines so bright in that regard. Maybe some of the parkour challenges later in the game get a bit too wild, and it's kind of hard to tell what becomes main path and what is side path. I remember at one point I was just struggling so hard in a specific path, and I felt like, okay, I'm almost done with it, only to realize that I get a measly reward at the end, and to realize that, wait, where am I supposed to go now? And I guess if I did have one point of criticism to bring up, specifically in one point later in the game, it gets kind of hard to know where the game wants you to go exactly. Yes, you can get some hints from a certain NPC, which is welcome, but other than that, you're kind of left to like, well, where do I go? What is main path? What is just me getting this new ability that allows me to go to these new places, but that is only for optional rewards, which, are fun and engaging, but I did feel a little lost at sea. Not that I particularly am looking for hand-holding, but it did feel like I was crossing into the territory of like, oh wait, what am I supposed to be doing now? Which, all things considered, is a relatively minor point of criticism. Because honestly, overall, I love the adventure. It really does feel that for every point of criticism one could bring up for this game, it does 10 other things so well. For example, I love the world building. There's quite a variety in architecture, biomes, color palettes, and I love the very cinematic presentation of the game overall. This, of course, applies equally to the boss fights. Yes, there are boss fights, and they're quite numerous and varied and challenging. This, of course, isn't the level of challenge we find in a Dark Souls game. In fact, I do find that a lot of them were quite easy. And then on the flip side, there's maybe one or two bosses later in the game that are more frustrating and annoying than challenging. But as I've said a few times in this video already, any flaws they may have, they more than make up for in personality. The story's pretty interesting. The writing's not half bad either. Soundtrack, voice acting, and the overall visual package is quite enthralling. And there's a decent amount of content to play here. It's not overbloated like so many Ubisoft games. So yeah, this is easily the best game we've gotten from Ubisoft in years and years. And I don't know when we'll get another game of quite that same freshness about it. So yeah, this is easily an 8.5 to 9 out of 10. And once again, I am kind of amazed just how smooth it is on the Nintendo Switch. That was a most welcome surprise, and that was exactly the kind of gaming companion I needed for my to to fro commute from work. So if there is one Ubisoft games you guys need to check out, it's definitely this one. And with all that being said, I was going to say that 2024 in gaming has been starting out pretty strong in terms of the content that's come out. But as I'm sure many of you know, the landscape for game developers has been kind of hell. I know so many people, either friends or just people that I am in contact with on the internet, that have just been severed from their jobs. It's kind of terrifying. And I count my lucky stars that I am unaffected by this. To all you game developers that are affected out there, my God, I take my hat off to you guys. Wishing you well. But on a more positive note, to celebrate the amazing content that game developers are making, yes, Prince of Persia and Lost Crown is the first great game of 2024, but it's only started there. There's also Like a Dragon Infinite 12, Persona 3 Reload, Pacific Drive, Final Fantasy Rebirth, and very, very soon on the horizon, Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, am I gonna play all these games? I barely finished this one game here, and there's all these other games stacking up one on top of the other. Oh my God. But yeah, these are good problems to have. I shouldn't complain. Maybe if I could have a Simmered Feather or two to help me travel back and forth in time to double task on these games. Maybe, please? Alright, with all that being said, as always, wishing you and your loved ones nothing but the best. Take care and talk to you all very soon.